right, preemptive statement. Car talks will return. They are. It gets a little tricky to do them when we're kind of all running around in different sort of Ubers and groups. The last couple days have been very busy. Let's just say it like that. But lift wise, still pretty solid. So let's see what we're looking at here. So whenever I post Q&As or anything like that, it's always just I'll get the first 20 and usually just run through those. And then I end up kind of deleting the post. So if you're curious, I usually only put those up on the YouTube itself. Like an Instagram, they'd probably just be too many. But let's see. Aiden _Crisp. Best advice for bulking with a full-time job. I just started my bulk and I need some tips. So I'll tell you this. This is honestly probably my best tip that I can think of beyond saying, oh, just eat, bro. Like, just eat more. Like, that's not wrong, but that's not a tip. Like, there's no helpful information when people say that, right? Or like when it's, oh, dude, you can't lose fat. Just eat less food. Like, that's true, but that's not a tip. So the way I look at it in terms of planning, if you're busy for anything and your actual overall food intake is like a high priority, then what I'm thinking is you've got essentially a certain window of time, meal to meal to meal to meal to meal, where let's say your average meal size, maybe 600 calories, and you're aiming for 3,600 throughout the entire day. Let's say in this analogy, all your meals are the same size, right? That's 6 meals. How long is your day really, right? Let's say you eat breakfast at 7 and you're going to bed at, let's say 10. Let's say you actually go to bed at a reasonable time. So 7 to 10, that's 15 hours, right? So it's 15 divided by 6. 15 divided by 6. 15 divided by 3 is 5. That's totally not right. Let me actually calculate this. What I'm trying to say is you've got to eat 6 meals evenly dispersed across that time frame. So 15 hours, 6 meals. So yeah, okay, every 2.5 hours. Actually, that makes sense. There we go. So if you're having a 600 calorie meal every 2.5 hours, at least on average, right? There's no point in like a meal every 2 hours, but the gist is you have to eat at that rate to actually get all of that food in. And if you get too far behind, you're kind of screwed, right? I've been there where, it's 11 o'clock at night. I was busy. I was doing something. I had tests. I had whatever. I got to eat 2,000 calories right before bed. That's not a good setup. And if you try to stay up late and play catch up, well, then you're going to throw your sleep off. You're going to wake up late. You're probably not going to start eating as early in the morning because you're going to be busy and then it's just this loop, right? So that just sucks. So if you can plan for making sure you have either access to food or just pack a meal, right? Like let's say you leave at 7, you're not really going to have lunch till noon, right? 2.5 hours between, 9:30, pack a meal, and then you're good. And it doesn't have to be a full-on like chicken and rice sort of thing either. My go-to like on the go, something quick is usually 2 scoops of protein and then some, depending on what your carb intake is, 2, maybe 3 packets of dried instant oatmeal of a flavor that, hopefully matches the protein. Like chocolate strawberry, that's decent. Chocolate, what's the orange oatmeal powder packet flavor? Peach? Yeah, chocolate peach, it's a little funky, right? But as long as you know that if you're going to be gone or not, in access to food for like a certain amount of time, planning a meal right in the middle so that you don't have this huge gap of no intake in the day, that's going to be a good setup. Isaac N111, have you started meal prepping? Not yet. Not freaking yet. Right now, I could describe my diet as grazing, right? Like I'm tracking everything. I'm making sure I'm eating about the same amount of food. But since I'm not even dieting yet. in a pure sense of being in a very strict deficit, because it's right in the beginning. I'm going from, over the course of these next 4 or 5 months, now the beginning, eating a crazy amount of food, like upwards of 3.5, 4,000 calories or so. That's a surplus, to eventually probably in the low 2000s, right? And I don't need to drop off instantly, right? I'm going to ease it downward gradually. So if I'm starting at, a bulking diet, then just to switching to maintenance, that's kind of on track with that downward scaling. So over the course of probably the next month and a half, that's when it'll get a bit more important for me to actually make sure that all my meals are perfectly, or at least, properly timed and sized. Because if I set myself up for failure and I don't eat anything until like 3 o'clock, odds are I'm going to be so hungry I'm just going to want to keep eating, and then I might overshoot my deficit. Or if I eat all my food by 3 o'clock, now what am I supposed to do? Go from 3 o'clock until I go to bed and wake up the next morning and eat nothing? That's not going to work either. So that's kind of part of the point of making sure that even bulking, how I talk about having an evenly spaced meal intake system throughout the day so that you can actually get in all that food. It's almost the same in reverse when you're trying to diet, except now the point is you're just trying to keep yourself at a baseline like level of stomach fullness so that you're not so hungry that you have the need to like really overeat and overdo it. Because at the end of the day, let's say it's 9 o'clock, you're going to bed at 10, you're going to bed at 11, you were good all day. Like, anybody can be good all day, but then it's almost bedtime, it's getting dark, you're sleepy, but like you're also hungry. The pantry's right there. I could just have a quick bowl of cereal. Oh, I know there's graham crackers in there. I could just have a sleeve. Yeah, a sleeve of graham crackers can easily go from 200 calorie deficit to 200 calorie surplus. And sure, you were good all day, and then right at the end of it, you're just gonna blow it for some graham crackers. And that's not meant to be condescending, because I've done that before, right? So I'm kind of when I'm saying some of these tips, I'm almost saying them back to myself. But yeah, not meal prepping exactly yet. But let's keep looking here. When's the Kyriakos Grizzly collab? It's not planned, and I think he's probably got his own stuff going on. But I'll keep you updated. Like, if that actually changes, you'll see. Like, you'll be the first one to freaking see it. How important is stretching? It depends on what you're doing, right? Like back when I was doing all the gymnastics and diving stuff, or even now, like anytime I go to the pool and I try to bust something out, I do want to limber up first, because right now I'm tense. Like if I were to try to sit and like really stretch out my hamstrings or something, or just like a very abrupt movement, odds are I'm going to kind of hurt myself, right? Or pull something, or just do something weird. So, I'd say it's decently important, but I slack on it. I was just telling that to Chris earlier. My stretching game could be worked on. And the bigger you get, I think the more important it is, if anything, just to maintain decent mobility. The one thing that I've actually noticed, because lifting wise, flexibility doesn't really come into play. A curl, you're never really stretching anything like that. But with squats, when I'm in the off season full of carbs, just the like increased intramuscular glycogen and water stores, it makes me tighter like all over, right? Like for me to probably like reach my hands as far back as they can right now, if I was bulked up, an extra 10 pounds, 12 pounds heavier than right now, I'd probably get a little bit, less range of motion. So that hits me on squats. Like for me to get under the bar for a squat, even now I kind of have to loosen up my shoulders on the uprights, but it does get a little tricky where I really have to loosen up even to get the bar that far back. So I think stretching increases in importance, basically in proportion with your muscle boundness, right? Or if you're doing any kind of like sport or something, there's always sport specific stretching. that I think you should probably be into. It's not the end of the world, but we should all be doing it, right? Here's a good one from Block A. How much merit do you think these full body every other day and upper lower guys have to this stuff? I fail to see how splits really affect things in the long run, aside from just giving you a solid routine to do lifts over and over again. So this is where it gets a little bit more subjective, right? Because I mean, a lot of, bro science-y, not even bro science, but like working out, it can be explained away to make sense with even two very different routines, right? Like someone could very easily explain full body every day, right? Like, if you do like a full workout, like 8 sets for one day of quads, sure you're getting stimulation, but you're building up so much lactic acid, it's just not going to work because you're actually hindering your gains. What you should really do is just 1 set every day. So someone who hits legs once a week, if you hit them every day, 1 set a day, you do the same amount of work over a whole week. Your volume is the same, but now you've got less fatigue, so you actually grow more. That's the kind of things that these guys are trying to say. For me, and maybe this is just because it's like what I've done and has worked for me, but it's going to be hard for me to get under hitting my entire body in 3 days. Like I've done it before. I've done, well, not full body every day, but I've done like essentially what's an upper lower. Like I would do, and this was when I was doing 2-a-days. I totally didn't need to, but for some reason I thought it was cool, where I would do back in the morning, chest at night, and then the next day would be legs in the morning, arms at night. So it's a 2-day loop, and then I would just repeat it. Because in my mind I was following the logic, all right, your muscles will, induce hypertrophy for a maximum of 48 hours. So I should hit a muscle, wait 48 hours, hit it again. That's kind of the logic I was following. I don't remember exactly what I saw that from, but I'm sure I had some kind of study to back it up. But I mean, actually in practice, I think it's just too much. I think there's a sweet spot of hitting things twice a week-ish, right? I hit them about twice every 8 days, which I mean, it's barely a percentage lower frequency than twice a week. So I'm very comfortable with that. But if I really hit my legs or my chest or my back or something, then a day later, it's not ready. 2 days later, it's not ready. 3 days, it's getting close. And on that 4th day, assuming my recovery was decent, I'm ready to roll, right? I'm ready to actually hit whatever that muscle was again. And if I'm not, then I'm just due for a rest day, right? And I repeat it. But, it's not like I'm citing a study to explain it. But the whole point of working out, I don't think it's supposed to be an on-paper thing. Like, I think no matter what you're doing, the results that you get are going to at least justify whatever you've been doing to a degree. And you should always keep an open mind for trying to, improve your routine or change it, or just look for little details that you can work on. Like, it would suck if somebody did a really crap routine and never improved it. But I mean, if you're coming to the gym 6 days a week, you're actually working hard, you're making progress, how bad can your routine be, right? If you kind of follow me there. So I think it's something along the lines where the working out, at least in like a personal fitness kind of approach, is almost supposed to be something that you learn and like grow accustomed to, actually like programming around your own body, and not even that, but also just around your own routine, because only know if you like doing morning workouts or later workouts, or maybe your chest gains are just phenomenal. You've got wild chest genetics. You can hit chest once a week and it's still your strongest body part. Like, there's so many different variables to people on an individual level, like both like genetically and like in their routine and everything else and how their upbringing was, that to try to box in like one specific routine, or like to try to say that one training style is objectively superior than any other for everyone, I don't see it. I think it's a very closed mentality. And one thing that I think turns it into a little bit of a beginner trap is like, I mean, let's be real. For what's the biggest deterrent keeping people from working out, right? What's the biggest thing where people say, like, oh, I'd love to be in shape, but, right? What are the biggest buts? Ooh, but you got to go to the gym. You got to work out hard. You got to do it a lot. Everything that actually makes working out work is the downside to these people, where they don't get it. Or like the uninitiated, I don't want to say these people. And the idea of like, oh, no, you don't actually have to go to the gym every day. You can go once a week. Or you can go twice a week, man. That's sweet. That works perfectly. Dude, 10 sets in a workout? That's way too many, man. That's too much fatigue. You can get away with one. That to someone who already has this preconception of, I don't want to do a lot. I don't want to go a lot. I don't want to go that hard. Oh, dude, leave reps in reserve. That's actually better. Like, I do not think that, or I at least think that there's a perspective to be discussed where some training philosophies, as we might call them, are really just coddling philosophies. Where, let's alternate universe. I'm a different Sam. It's not me. I hate working out. I really don't like being in the gym. I don't like going to failure at all. The bars hurt my hands. They hurt my calluses. But I'd love to be in shape. Like, if I was in shape, that'd be awesome. But I hate doing everything that goes into it. If I heard someone start kind of perpetuating the idea, dude, you don't have to go to the gym that often. You can just take a ton of days off, and really, when you're in the gym, you should only be in there for like 20 minutes and then leave. That would be very appealing to me. Like the idea that that we want to be done in the gym as soon as possible, or that we don't want to train hard. Like these people who at least have this kind of opinion on training where they want to minimize it. It's not the same philosophy as like a Menser, right? Like Menser would say, you should only do 2 sets every wild frequency, like 2 sets a week or 2 sets or whatever. But it wasn't like, there's no way possible that his reasoning was, I don't really like training. But someone whose reasoning is that they don't like training would love a 2-week or a 2 set a week philosophy because it means less training, So it's kind of something where 2 people can do the same thing, but the fact that their motivations are completely different changes the situation entirely. Like, I don't want to come to the gym for 10 minutes. I like getting to be in here and really bringing it, And I've got the anecdotal evidence of the fact that I have been making gains using similar styles across the board of all the time I've been working out, where I know it works, So I don't, I mean, you'd really have to convince me somehow to do like a 1 set chest day and then leave. And honestly, even if that was like, well, I know it's not, but even let's say a hypothetical world where that was all you had to do, I'd probably still do more just because I like it, So is that me being disagreeable to this open conversation? The fact that I actually like to train, and the fact that there's people who like being in the gym and that they don't just want to leave as soon as they get there. I think it's something to think about, right? I'm not saying that's completely right, but I think that's a perspective to think about. But I really just spun that question around was that the stretching question? That was probably my biggest spin-off in one of these I've ever done. Okay, new question. Thanos LBMT asks, what's your 3 most hated Evos to play in Clash Royale? I think, this might be a very specific percentage of you guys that know what I'm talking about. I think the Witch evolution is like just weird. I don't really like it. Like, yeah, it's not that cool. Whatever. I think the Mega Knight evolution, I don't mind it. Like, I don't think it's like too overpowered or anything. But sometimes it's, It's a little bit of a blunder. And then the Thunderbolt or the Thunder Dragon, that evolution is kind of rough. But the only one I just don't like at all is the Witch, just because I don't like the dynamic. The other two are I don't like just because they're hard. But that's not like me dogging on them. Nathan McLelland asks, what do you think of Urs going to open? That was something I actually have not discussed yet. I tell you something, Urs is a beast. If you've ever seen Urs, which the last time I saw him was in Pittsburgh in Mayish, a couple of months ago. But the dude was 300 pounds, and he is not like we're in the same height category, so we're within an inch of height. Like we're kind of just both right about there. And I think I'm feeling pretty big at 270, and he's 300 just about, or at least he was. He's leaner now, with quad striations. So it really is a situation where you kind of outgrow your class. You know, he said in an Instagram post, like, don't misquote me here, but like for him to try to keep doing classic just at the rate that he's progressing, it just wouldn't even work. Like he's I think in the 260 range right now, getting ready for a show in Italy to qualify for the Open Olympia, and he's 260 nearly stage ready. 260 lean to try to cut down to 227. The math just does not check out, right? So it's not like he didn't know that. So he must have just seen himself going to Open in the process of that whole off season, which people still ask me that. They're like, Sam, are you ever going to move to Open? I'm big, but I'm not that big. I was just barely light enough to be able to do the amateur show because I had to, like, I didn't weigh 217 on stage, but I did have to cut down like full day fast, water cutting and everything to get to 217. And I was 217 for like an hour and a half. And then I started eating more food and carbing up again. So I'm going to the Arnold next year, which is the second part of his question. And I can be 227 for the check-in phase. So how I looked in Dragon's Lair a few days before that first show in Vegas, that was a good look. And I was about 232. So assuming I've got a couple more pounds of mass from this last off season, and I hold on to a bit more and get a touch leaner, I'm aiming to keep that fullness. Because for me to cut all the way down to 217, that was a lot of water loss. Way more than I would like. But it was just necessary to get to that size. So if I didn't make weight, and I weighed in at 219, sometimes the scale does have a certain variability to it because, it's not like an industrial scientific to the microgram scale. But I mean, if you're overweight, you're overweight. And then you're going to have to compete in classic. So that, or in open. So that I was kind of sweating bullets a little bit on the drive to weigh-ins. Because if I was 218, I was going to have to compete in open. And the guy who won, or he didn't win, but he got second in that show, ended up winning the Olympia, or the Arnold Amateur Open class. So they were like, I'm not an open guy. And I don't think I have any plans to be. But you never know. I've never heard Urs say he was going to go to Open, and then now he is. So I guess we'll just have to see. Some of this, it's hard to predict this kind of stuff, man. You never know what might happen. So oh wait, no, that was a full body. Yeah, the full body question. Yeah, what am I thinking? Preston Vance, do it fart. I think that's probably true for everybody. That's a silly question, but I don't think there's anyone in the world who's never farted, right? So I think that was kind of rhetorical. How do you tell if you're just bloated or gaining fat too quickly on a bulk? Asks Rishab K, well, whatever, 5883. Now that's a good question. Right, and I get some flack for this because of my appreciation for a bulking phase. But you got to remember, that's within reason, right? I would never tell someone you should gain 30 pounds of body fat in an off season, right? So when I say bulk within reason. And in terms of telling if you're just bloated or if you're, putting on a real body fat, define bloated for me, because I think to eat maintenance for a few months and then start eating in a surplus, you will gain like temporary size of just extra, cellular water and carbs. So that could kind of account for some of that bloating that you might be referencing. Because if you're really bloated, it's not that you can feel more fat, like separating your abs from your stomach. It's just that your stomach is physically like a little more, kind of distended because all your guts are like literally bloated inside you, right? So it's kind of just something you should get a feel for. Like if you can tell you're eating something weird or maybe it's messing with your stomach, that could be a little more on the bloated side of things, right? Or if you eat a whole bunch of like, keto buns, like you may eventually in a dieting phase thinking that they're like the perfect hack, that'll make you feel a bit bloated. But actually just feeling a little heavier, you're holding on to more water, that's appropriate, right? But so now on to the second question in terms of how to tell if you're putting on fat too quickly, excuse me, that's where the mirror is going to come into play a little bit more, right? So what I mean by that is you can check the scale, let's say you're gaining a pound a week. That's solid. That's 4 pounds a month. And if you're looking at yourself from the scale week to week to week, visually, if you can tell you're, getting a bit fatter, or you're just at least putting on more body fat, not only that you're comfortable with, but just a really noticeable amount in general, what that would tell me, at least assuming your training is decent, you've got a little cardio in the mix, is this is your baseline calories, your maintenance, and this is your surplus that you're doing. So if you're putting on too much body fat, this surplus is a little too high, right? So there's a limit where you're eating more food, but it doesn't mean more gains. It just means you're packing that extra energy, like how any organism would, and storing it as body fat. So that would just mean you want to reduce that surplus a touch to something a little bit more manageable. And depending on how much cardio you're doing and how, frequently you're training, or physically just how big you are, that's all going to kind of determine how big of a surplus you need to be in. So I'm never doing the math of like going into a, like professional physical therapist and doing like a VO2 max and finding my metabolic heart rate by analyzing my carbon dioxide production rate or anything like that. For me, you kind of start to get the gist. After you've done a couple of bulks and you see your weight stagnate or anything else like that, you kind of start to tell, okay, I got to up my calories a touch or reduce them. So as long as you can be consistent, and if you visually see yourself getting too soft, just back off a touch. Right? Nothing more to it than that. But if you get too soft, you got to diet back down, right? Every bulk has its cut. So if you overdo it either way, you kind of defeat the purpose, right? You want to be in a smooth back and forth, right? Imagine a wave on the beach, right? It crashes in and then it goes back out, right? If any of that was off kilter, then, well, talking maybe not tsunami. It's not that drastic, but you do want things to all be kind of in line with each other. So that's not a super specific answer, but that's basically the gist of it. Lamb3 asks, what's your favorite color? What's my favorite color? There's a whole bunch of colors, that's for sure. I feel like when I think what's my favorite color, I think what's the color that I am wearing the most. I think that's my version of that answer. And if I had to pick one, I'd probably have to pick black. It's very consistent. It all kind of matches. It's not crazy loud. But I mean, I feel like whatever my favorite color is on any given day is probably what my gym outfits look like. If I'm feeling purple, I got a purple shirt on. If I'm feeling green shirt. If I'm feeling all gray, I mean, right now I'm all grayed out. Yeah, things like that. But no specific answer. I don't know anybody who's like a diehard Maroon fan. Right, I'm sure I know a diehard Maroon 5 fan, but not Maroon specifically or Turquoise or anything like that. But I'm not super picky, right? So hopefully that I answered that to your satisfaction, Mr. Lamb. What's your biggest goal right now outside bodybuilding? Asks Spooky Lift. It's hard to say. It's hard to say exactly because I feel like a lot of like I don't exactly feel like it, but at this point my whole life revolves around bodybuilding, at least in the sense of working out, which is sweet for me. Like this this is freaking great. But sometimes I don't feel like it always revolves around it because it's like it feels so natural. Because I mean I've been like from day one working out almost became like, all right, I'm working out today on repeat. It doesn't feel, it's not a chore because I like to do it. And the fact that it kind of encompasses so much, excuse me, the fact that it encompasses so much of my days and just, everything else and things I look forward to and the people I get to meet, like it's so varied in the aspects that come along with it now that even though I definitely kind of revolve around it, and everything I do always kind of does, it's still so interesting that if I had to kind of bubble it all together, most of what I'm really trying to work on is sort of related, but it doesn't feel so boxed in as like, okay, I need to do this bodybuilding show, I need to be in prep, I need to like, it doesn't feel like that. Like I don't feel like I have the blinders on because there's just so much going on that it's like it could just never get old. So in terms of my biggest goal outside of bodybuilding, it's almost like anything I could think of that would be like that is bodybuilding related, or at least only like one cousin over as an activity. But I'm sure that'll change over time, right? Like all my values and things that I appreciate and things I'm trying to work toward. Fast forward 5 years, like let's say we've got 28-year-old Sam right next to me and we're having a conversation. He's going to have way different stuff to talk about. And that's kind of the whole point, right? You don't want to be the same guy year to year, whenever to whenever. So I guess I think I'll have a very different answer in the future. So let's take a look here. Strads1517. What are some of your favorite video games? For a while I was a freaking Warzone fiend. And I don't know if I should admit this or not, but for a while there's a little bit of a glitch that you could use where the method would be you get like 12 recon. What were they even called? Well, you get 12 recons done. And then essentially what that does is it tells you exactly where the ending circle is going to be. So in the process of doing all those recons, you get a bunch of cash. So you buy a loadout to actually use, get Ghost, get whatever, get Cold-Blooded, and then you buy one more loadout. You go to wherever that center circle is going to be, and you would throw the loadout down right underneath you, or like throw it down wherever you wanted it to be. And if you stood and crouched right where it landed, it would glitch you inside of it, and then you could basically see everything. Like the actual texture of the loadout box was just right there, or it wasn't there for you. You could see out, but they couldn't see in, and you were like there was no physics that would move the box like with a truck or anything. So you just wait for everyone else to come in final circle, and then you could just shoot them from the inside the box. And there was a hot mic every game at the end. Everybody would be freaking pissed. But even so then they fixed that. And then I was still like I could just do a solo win like nothing. And then one day I just couldn't load into games. Like I don't think I was like perma-banned or anything. Like I didn't get any repercussions. But something about like my Wi-Fi or my computer, I'm just not sure. So I could just never do it again. Like I could not play Warzone, so it cut me off totally cold turkey, which is probably fine. I was wasting a bunch of time playing Warzone back in school, but I did like it. Warzone was it for sure. Let's see. Austin Hurt asks, what are the names of all the pets you've had? How about all the pets I have? So there's 4 cats: Rio, Rocky, Rascal, and Rambo. All R's that kind of turn into the theme. Rio's the white one. He's a little prissy. You know, like first he was a single child, and then now he's got all sorts of siblings. You know, coming in, invading his space, but super soft. Rocky is this black cat. All of them are from shelters. And when I got him, he was like 7 pounds, lanky. Like when you kind of stretch him out, like probably a foot, maybe even 2 feet long, from like hands to feet. But he was real scrawny. He's getting underfed. His coat was a little light. But over the course of like 3 months, I'm talking wet food. I'm talking, I think, 400 calories a day, or maybe it was 200. I don't remember, but a recommended amount, based on the actual, size that he was. And then now he's like 12 pounds, but like full, like not 12 pounds bulk. Like that's his good walking around weight. Super strong, but yeah, now he looks like a freaking Maine Coon. He's got the ears with the tips. His coat, like he looks like a show cat. Like honestly, if I don't know if he's like a purebred or whatever, but if I brought him into a cat show, at least for his breed, I think he'd place. Like he looks sweet. That's and then Rascal, he's 5. He's a little older, lighter, kind of a smaller guy. He's like 8 pounds, full size, pretty little. He must have he's had some shit go down for sure. Like the first night, he hid behind the fridge all night. Just, nobody, that still doesn't like being picked up. That's where he draws the line. But he loves getting pet. I'm talking just, if you, I don't know, I think you got to look it up. Not all cats do this, but when a cat's really, liking that you're petting on him, sometimes they'll just drool a little bit. And he does that like freaking crazy. But he loves all the other cats. Like when they're sleeping, he's always sleeping next to one of them. Like they're all kind of just making a little freaking nest. But I picked him up once when I was petting him, and it's like nothing much. Like I was able to just kind of scoop him up a second, move him over like a foot, but that was actually a big milestone. And then Rambo's this little orange one. He just kind of sleuths, a little nervous, but he's good. They're all chill. And now I've got Blue, this freaking. At first he was 120 pounds, but now he's getting up to like damn near 150. Actually getting some meat on his bones. He was pretty scrawny at first. I'm talking, hips, real kind of ribs, everything. But so I fostered him for the week because I'm not sure how he would do the cats. Right? And the cats were there first. They got dibs. So if they've got a problem, he's got to go. Right? Which, I didn't want it to happen, of course. But they did not, like, they were a little spooked at first because they never see dogs. But now they're totally chill. And he's freaking lazy too. He's sleeping more than I'm sleeping. And I feel like I sleep a freaking lot. But yeah, that's the current critter family, as it were. Some bigger than others. So let's get one more good one in here. I'm Too Legit asks, what do you think of bulgur as a rice substitute? I don't know what that is, and I'm not going to look it up. Sorry, man. Will I ever move to open? Probably not, asks MJP1269. Peyton160, do you ever see yourself going to open? It's probably not going to happen. Better Call Saul moment with the most aura, asks Block A again. I already said it, so I'll give it to you, but that's cheating. Ooh, I don't know. It was pretty wild when he walked out of that, not a deposition, but when he walked out of the something or other, when he got his law license back, not spoiler alert, but also that phone battery scene. That was up there. That was freaking up there. But I'll get some more of these going. When I get back home, we'll get some actual grocery trips because I do got to eat very differently now that I'm dieting. It'll I mean, there's some things stay the same. You know, ground beef, turkey, eggs, but it's the sides that change, right? Ground beef with 150 grams of rice, not going to work, right? Ground beef with a big bowl of like a certain pre-made salad that I really like, and I only use half the dressing, that's a little bit more likely, right? But things like that. And then car talks will return, but that'll be a little bit because we got the whole lift event this weekend, and then staying over Monday. So I'm not going to be. Yeah, I don't think the car is going to come back till Wednesday. That's like, eh, it's only a couple days, but I know I'm kind of depriving you because this is a bit of a longer trip. But no, this is sweet over here. It's it's something to just do all this stuff on my phone and post it, and then I go about my regular day. But I mean, I say this every expo. Like anytime there's an actual gathering of anybody in the space, I'm talking whether they're more power lifter, bodybuilder, calisthenic, whoever. It's crazy getting to see these people in person. Like it's watching the video does no one justice. I can say that with 100% certainty. But I'll try to get some more talking in the next ones. So I think I'll just see you tomorrow for whatever that ends up being.